Hello and welcome to Drafting the Dregs. This is your place for all things EPL. Oh, I've just lost it again. It's because I have to say I can't say just so everyone's aware. I can no longer say this is your podcast for all things draft EPL fantasy. I have to say this is your place for all things draft EPL fantasy because now we're live streaming. Sorry about that, boys. We've got Gilby, we've got Mick. Um, Maybe one of you could do it next week. I've obviously just stuffed it up again. There's 2 weeks in a row.
Definitely not.
Yeah,
I do not take any responsibility.
yeah, sounds good. I mean, I thought you were just thinking like how to say the word fantasy for a live streaming thing without sounding weird. So yeah,
Oh,
all good.
okay. I see. Yeah, okay. You've okay. Maybe not. But look, boys, we're here to talk about uh our group's draft this week. So it's happened. It's completed. Boys, initial thoughts. How did we go? Are you happy with how you drafted without giving too much away? Gilby, let's start with you. Happy, content, not crying every evening?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy. I'm surprised with how it ended up. I had a plan going in, and it pretty much went to plan.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I'm happy, but I've gone with more risk than I have in the past. So that's something we'll talk about soon.
Well, I'm keen to hear what that plan is. Mick, how about yourself?
Uh, Very similar to Gilby. I definitely went in with a plan, and unlike normal, where I went risk, I tried very hard to stick to it. I spoke about it in last week's ep. Um, and there was a few guys that I saw sliding down the board, and I was like, oh man, I think at this point they're a great shout right now, but stuck to my guns. I stuck to my structure I wanted to, and I avoided them to fill a slot I didn't want to fill yet. So
Okay.
hopefully it doesn't come back to bite me, but I'd say safe was a good way to describe how I went this year. I definitely stuck to what I wanted to do.
Okay, well, I you'll be pleased to know I went in with very little plan, but I'm still pretty happy with how it all went. So I can't say I had too much of a plan going in, other than having the data in front of me that I thought would be useful, and that was really about it. So I guess we'll jump into it really soon. But I think the first thing that we want to talk about in this podcast today would be the draft night vibes. So Gilby, you hosted again, which is very, very kind of you. We had a satellite draft going on as well, Mick, which you were a part of. Gilby, first up, what was the vibe like? When did people start arriving? Did 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 it kick off early, or were people pretty subdued? What was the vibe like when we first initially got there?
Yeah, well, being that I live over the north side of Brisbane, similar to yourself, a few people are leaving work early. So Jeff was the first person to arrive. Similar to the last couple of years, I think, when I've hosted, Jeff's generally been first. Dave was next. Again, both they were leaving work early from the city and coming directly over. And then there was like basically everyone else just kind of arrived in one big group as they could get off work and get themselves sorted. So yeah, I mean, I think it was a lot of fun. As always, it was good to catch up with people I hadn't seen for all year except online. And yeah, I think it was a really good night.
Absolutely, there was we especially as the draft was going, and at the end as well, we had a few games and things going on. Pizza was involved. There was plenty of, well, for some, plenty of beer, plenty of beverages of choice. Mick, now you and Dan aren't in Brisbane at this point in time. How was it for you guys? Because you were up in Rocky. What was your evening like?
Subdued, very subdued. Just the two of us.
Okay.
We I mean, it was well set up. I think it was a better setup for us at our end anyway than it was last year when I think it was Dan, myself, and Ben. We had the draft board that I think we'll show a bit later up on our big screen, and the
Yep.
laptop in front of us that we had you guys on, and the list that we were typing into at the time because I was in charge of that one, and then Dan and I both working off our phones there in terms of ranking players. But yeah, it was pretty good. Very very quiet from our side. But in saying that, sometimes that may not be the worst thing because we can just mute you guys and not hear all the crap going on, and you don't have the helpful advice of others.
Yeah, fair enough. I can understand that. But were you a bit jealous of the noise and commotion happening at certain points in time, Mick?
I mean, I
He
still
really
don't
shouldn't
understand
be.
this. I still don't understand this duck race thing. I think you guys are going to talk about it, but I just don't. Every now and again, the camera would turn around, and then you go on about how this duck with chevrons needs to win, and how the red duck is coming home, and it was just really confusing. So I can't wait to hear what that's all about.
We will definitely be talking about that very, very, very shortly. Yeah, that was an interesting part of the evening. We might get onto that now because the next thing we need to talk about, because people who have been listening in will know that and as Mick said, we don't use the official draft to do our drafting per se. We actually do that later. We use a spreadsheet to do that, and the draft order isn't just randomly chosen for us. We have a specific method of doing that, which I'll term and call the Wheel of Fortune. So, Gilby, what's the Wheel of Fortune all about? How does it work for us? And how is that going to be the way forward in the future, do you think?
Yeah, well, basically, I think we explained it last time how it goes on last season's results, where the manager that finished last got the most spots on the wheel. I was in charge of building the wheel this year. So they got the highest chance of getting the first opportunity to select a draft position. We spoke about that last time, so I won't go on further into that. But yeah, we just spin that up, and that decides the order that you select your position in. As to whether or not that will last, we'll probably get into the duck race pretty soon of what that is. But essentially, one of the years, I think it may have been Mick even recording a video where he did a camel race, where that was deciding our order. So essentially, it was like a fake electronic camel that would race to the end, and whichever order that came out, that was our draft. So in between, while we were waiting, I think for Mick and Dan, I was searching for camel race, trying to find that, and I randomly found a website that had a duck race, and that may end up being our future draft selection strategy to race your ducks. So we'll see how that goes, and we may even live stream that. I'm sure that'll be a highlight for everyone.
I must say the Ducks was a good addition to the evening, and I think we really got into it, and could definitely see a bit of betting going on later on. I see maybe a big. I think we may have even said maybe we get some Russian billionaires betting on that particular race and outcome. I think that could work quite well. It was a bit of fun. It was good. And I think having like 100 on the board, 100 on the screen, 100 ducks trying to, get across the line first was quite interesting. So, we'll see what that looks like moving forward. Now, in terms of that, who can recall the first name that came out from the Wheel of Fortune? Gilby, who came out first, and was that a surprise?
The first name out was our brand new manager to the competition, Justin, or Cranny, as we generally refer him. He had 5 selections in the board, so he was not the most likely manager to come out, but he was the first one out. And do we want to go through the order now for the rest of it, or are we going through what happened from then?
Well, let's go through the order. So Craney came out first. Obviously, just a reminder, Ben had the most chance.
Yep, he had
from the
9
draw.
spots on the board. Yep.
Yep. So he had the biggest chance, but he didn't come out first. Did he come out second, Gilby?
He did not.
No.
Jeff, our former 2-time champion, came out next. He had 6 spots on the board, I think, or 4. I can't remember that much. But yeah, he was out next.
He was definitely 6 because he did a
Yep.
bit of tanking toward the back end of the season.
Yeah.
It was allegedly in the last round.
Allegedly, Your Honor. Yeah,
allegedly.
Yep. And then I was next out. I had 7 spots on the board, so fairly likely to happen. I came out third. Dave was next. He had 4 spots on the board, I think. And then after that, I think it was Isaac.
Yep.
Then we had, was it Dan or Mick came out next?
Dan.
I believe it was
came
Dan.
out next. Yep. And then Ben.
So it took a long time for poor old Ben to get on the board. That was very, very.
By that time, he had 9 out of a possible 13 slots.
Yeah.
It was amazing that he didn't get it. I felt really bad for him, to be honest. Like he did not deserve that.
Yep. So he came out next, and then we had Mick.
No, Nathan.
Nate came out before you. That's right. And then Mick came out last of all.
I got it when there was 3 out of 3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it
yeah.
was Nick was the last one off the board there. I remember that. Thank you. I should have probably recorded that and played it back and written that down. But anyway, we always specialize in preparation in this podcast, so that was
100%.
a really fun part of our draft. I think that will probably continue. That we'll do that live. Added a little bit of fun to the night, I think. So
Yeah,
the
it
strategy
was good.
might vary depending on the year, but I think that's pretty fun, and I'm sure we'll go through what spots everyone's selected in a second.
Absolutely. No, doing it live was good. I think that was a good addition. I think then adding maybe the duck race to that could be even more special. So that could be a lot of fun. That could be a lot of fun. So, look, Craney came out first. Now, Craney had the opportunity then to pick which spot to draft from. So that's sort of we do it a little bit differently. That's how we like to do it. If you're looking to do a draft, you can do it however you want. You could let the EPL official EPL draft site do it for you, but we have a bit of fun with it. Now, given that Craney is new, he decided that he didn't want to go first. He wanted to take the third pick. What do we make of that, boys? Do we think that was a good thing considering, he's new to the game, just wanted to get a feel for it? Or do we think that maybe he should have just gone, bit the bullet, taken the first pick?
I think the strategy was pretty good.
I like it. Yeah.
Like I said last week, I think there was a clear top 5, in my opinion. So as long as you're in that top 5, you can basically get rid of your risk by picking the wrong one, by going 5th and getting whichever one's left over. Particularly in this league this year, an extra player, you get 18th pick if you get first. So I think by going 30, move himself up 2 slots to 16th. And I think that was a better option. I mean, potentially he could have gone even lower. Being a new guy to the league, maybe it would have been easier to have more time between picks, potentially. But I think he had to go in the top 5. Going 1, there's no point. You may as well. You're still going to have a selection, a choice, an option if you go a little bit lower. So I think he did the right thing.
Yeah, I think that revealed that he may have done some kind of research because a lot of the reports I was reading was saying like if you had to select a spot, what's the best according to the data, and a few articles I read or found were saying they'd select spot 3, 4, or 1 as the top 3 selections. So yeah, I mean, I think he chose a really safe spot for himself in the first go round.
And I think we did some data on our own draft at some point. I think you might have done it, Mick, at some point, saying that maybe 3rd or 4th was the best in terms of outcome at the end of the season.
Yeah, that was based off all of our previous results.
Yeah.
Obviously, an 8-man league at the time there, where based on where everyone's drafted from, what position historically they've done well from. 4th has always been really good, 3rd and 4th. 2nd as well. 1st has never won the league. As well as that, I believe it was 7th has also never won the league. So 1st and 7th, worst plots to draft from. I think with 1st as well, like in previous years, it's probably been a little bit easier. Salah's as good as a sure thing to get you 200 points. You'd think. I mean, I said after his first year that he wasn't going to do it again. I think he's done it every year since. So you're relatively safe going something like that. But as soon as you slide down the order, you take a little bit of that risk away because you don't have the choice anymore. But you're still pretty much guaranteed a good, solid player there.
Look, I said to Crane on the night, I think that was the perfect move. I said to him that I probably would have done that myself. If I'd have come out first, I probably would have said, yeah, I'll take 3rd pick because I would have. You can make an assumption that the top 3 players in the EPL game or FPL game will probably get similar-ish points, so you're not losing out too much, provided you don't go with a crazy pick like Ings or something like that. But I think he's done the right thing. So I think that was a really good choice on his part.
Out of curiosity, Gilby, would you have gone 3rd? I would have gone 5th.
I was debating for anywhere between 1st to 5th. And I probably would have based it on just the numbers in the end and gone with it. I probably would have gone 2nd or 3rd because I do like having my selections a bit closer together than most people. Just a personal preference. There's no data that indicates better or worse for that. So I would have been tempted to go 2nd. I may have gone 3rd. But yeah, I would have gone 2nd or 3rd. I wouldn't have chosen 1st.
The only one thing that would have swayed me, because I would have gone 3rd, but the one thing that would have swayed me was that Jeff had the next pick and he was always going to go first to get Salah. So I feel like I may have gone, okay, I'll go first and I'll take Salah just so he didn't get him. That would be my only thing, because he's pretty much got him definitely 3 of the drafts that we've done where Salah's been available. So he loves Salah. He got him this time. I might have just taken first to spite him. But in any case, let's move on. So Craney picked third. Then it was pretty straightforward from there. Jeff, who had the next pick, picked first. Gilby, you picked second. Pretty comfortable with that?
Yeah, no, I was happy with that. I was always going to go that way.
And then Dave picked fourth. Myself, I picked fifth. Dan picked sixth. And then Ben, who was the unlucky person, really, to be so low in the picking order, decided to go for the double up with ninth, which, to be honest, is probably a pretty good move at that point in time. Mick, would you have gone for something like that if you'd had that choice at that pick?
Having the first 6 had already gone, possibly. I mean, I did the same thing last year. I had a pick around there, a couple behind me, and I went last. I really struggled, and I said if I had the chance, I'd go up. But like I said, the top 5 were really clear, and then there was a bit of a gap, I think, to the next run of players. So I think going 9th wasn't the worst idea because he got the 10th pick as well. So he pretty much got he's the only person that gets 2 of the top 10 selections. So I think that's probably the right play, especially if you didn't think there was a clear top 8, sorry.
So then, Mick, you went for 7th. And no, hold
After
on. That's
Nathan
not
went
right.
for 8th.
I apologize. Nathan went for 8th to get probably closer to his, closer picks, which is fair enough. And then Mick, you had the unenviable task
I had
of picking 8th.
I had the choice of going 7th or 7th.
7th or 7th. And
You
what do we say?
truly
No one's
had
ever
it
won from 7th.
No one has ever won from 7th. So
You truly did have the dregs.
Absolutely. It got very draggy towards the end of the draft, which we will see very soon.
you wouldn't believe it, but I set up my own wheel throughout that day at work to show a co-worker of mine what we were doing.
I would believe it.
And I did the same thing. I spun it. Ben came out first, removed him, got all the way there. You wouldn't believe it. I got last. So I went, well, at least I know that won't happen again because what are the chances of that?
They're good enough, apparently.
So that's impressive.
There you go. Well, look, I think it's time that we start having a look at the draft board. So I'm going to bring that up. Now, we need to go through the first round, and I would love to be able to compare it to Mick, what your predictions for the first round picks were. We've already maybe spoiled it a little bit. Well, not spoiled it, but I think everyone knew that Salah was going to go first, especially if Jeff decided to take him. So we'll go over to the draft board now. You'll get to see the whole draft, but we're just going to focus in on the first round.
The safer of the 2 elite picks.
Absolutely. So then...
They should have been. But yeah, I think, pretty happy with that as expected so far.
Yeah. So in terms of picking Haaland, and there we were talking about that last week. I'll be honest, if I didn't pick up Haaland, I didn't know who really to pick up. I'll be totally honest with you. I just figured I couldn't leave Haaland. I know he's not a known quantity in the league, but you've got to take that risk and think that he's going to score some valuable points.
if it was me in your spot, Isaac, I would have gone the safer of the two options, and I had a look at it. I actually, on my board, I would have taken TAA with your selection, but that was just me going with a more safer pick as opposed to Haaland. But yeah, I can definitely see where you're going Haaland. I'd be happy with either of those two as my first pick.
It was definitely out of
Just-
TA and Haaland.
A little note there. Apparently, when you're putting the draft board up there, Isaac, our sound is cutting out. So something to keep in mind there. Getting a few comments.
Cool. Well, I will try not to do that then at this point in time. It'll be interesting, be different, but we'll see how we get on. Thank you for letting me know. That seems a bit odd. I will see if we can rectify that, but yeah, we'll see how we get on. So then looking at that, Diaz for Dan, what do we think about that one in particular? Diaz, because was he in your top 9, Mick Diaz?
Let me bring up that top 9. He was not.
He was not.
No.
Okay.
So there was 2 slightly different. He was not in my top 9, but seeing as I had the next pick after, I was okay with that.
Yeah. So obviously you were with Dan. What was he? Did he say too much to you in and around that pick?
Not specifically. I think for him, he probably looked at more the forwards that were available, the midfielders that were available, because that's, I guess, traditionally where the points are. And he basically decided that there was no better mid or no better forward in the pack, which I could probably argue for him. That's probably fair. So it was between him and TAA, and he just went with Diaz because I guess the assumption there with especially start of the season, Josh is out with a bit of a hamstring complaint that he'll at least start the season. And he's fitted in pretty well towards the back end of last year. So fair enough to it if he takes over Mane's spot straight away.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And so I guess the only other one, like I think we agreed that Cancelo should really be in that top 9. He was definitely there, I believe, when we spoke about it last week. Obviously, Nathan taking Vardy. What are the thoughts there, boys? Just to round out talking about the first round.
Horrible pick.
Horrible pick. Okay. Mick? You was that
a risky? I'm not going to say horrible. I'm going to say there's risk associated with that. Leicester have done nothing this period, which I would assume is a bad thing. They haven't really lost anyone in terms of their attacking output, but they are a team that don't really strike me with much hope. Vardy is the type of guy that will overperform. If he can stay fit, he should get him 10 to 15 goals. But in saying that, there's Ivan Toney, Patrick Bamford, Calvert-Lewin, all way down the list in rounds, and they're 10 to 15 goal strikers as well. So if Vardy performs, fantastic, but I feel like at worst, for pick number 8, he would have been there. Ben wouldn't have picked him in the next 9 or 10 slots, so he could have got him at 11 at worst.
Yep. No, that's a fair enough point. I mean, obviously, again, if I'd have got to that stage where Nathan was, I probably would have struggled knowing exactly who to go for. You could argue that like Kane and Haaland have already gone. So in terms of if you wanted to pick up a really good forward, who's left? Well, Vardy and Jesus would probably be the 2 that come to mind. You could maybe argue Ronaldo, but with the uncertainty there at the time, it was maybe a difficult one to go for straight away. So I think that, it was probably I don't mind it if then what you do with your next pick is okay. And I think what he's done with his next pick is okay. So we'll have a look at that, obviously, moving through. But we obviously want to have a look at each of the managers. What we're going to do, we're going to grade from an A to an E. We've got 2 teachers on the podcast, so that's going to be something that's quite easy to do. And Mick, your lovely better half is also one. So you've probably seen some grading happen in your time as well. So A to E, should we start with Jeff? Should we start with Jeff, who had that first round? I'm going to see if maybe I can share the screen, maybe just online, and see if that will come through. I'll just tinker with that. But boys, let's have a look at Jeff. So Gilby, did you want to maybe take us through who Jeff picked up in order of pickup?
Yeah, so he had Salah as the first pick, and then he would have been overjoyed to see Robertson come back to him for the second round. I think a lot of people were picking Robertson a bit earlier than that. I was very close to taking him, but we'll talk more about what I did with my second pick a bit later. Then he went with his mids. He had Foden and Zaha. to attacking mids. I know he's really rating Foden this season, so he's really happy about that one too. Koulibaly, questions on that one for me. I'll get to that a bit later. Then he became the second person to take a goalkeeper. Allison was gone. I know he would have been loving to have Allison, but he took the next best. He took Edison, the City keeper. Then
he actually
Trippier.
was third keeper. He was third
Was he
person
on
to
the
take a
coming
keeper.
back? Oh, okay,
That was
coming
on the
back down
reverse,
the
yeah.
order. Okay, so third to take a keeper then. Then he had Trippier. I know he was overjoyed to have Trippier. Really likes him. DCL, he was less overjoyed about, given his record last season for me. I know exactly how he felt. Smith Rowe, Ben White, Jota. It was again really happy that he fell that far. That was a bit of a surprise for me. Elise, your next big thing at Palace there, Isaac. Neko Williams, he really rates highly. Nketiah, he likes as just a bit of a risk. And then he finished off with a safe goalkeeper, Robbie Sanchez from Brighton. So to me, when I look at his draft, a couple of things stand out. For me, at least in my opinion, Edison way too early. I don't really rate Koulibaly that early either. Parts I really like. I really like Elise that late in the draft. Salah's going to be great. I don't think he can go too far wrong there. Robertson, he would be overjoyed that he's dropped that far. To me, it's questions whether he had Nketiah, whether he's even worth drafting with that last spot. But as a last forward, maybe. I went with a B for Jeff for his drafting.
Okay. Mick?
I had a B down for Jeff as well. Very similar. I think his top four picks, Salah, Robertson, Foden, Zaha, can't go wrong. That's pretty solid. Zaha at pick effectively 36 in our draft. I mean, he's a midfielder who can play as an out-and-out striker, which historically in this game does very, very well.
Penalty taker.
Yeah, so I think he scored a few goals in preseason. You're the Palace expert here, but he's done pretty well so far. So I think they're all great. Again, Edison early. What it did allow him to do, though, is Edison's the type of keeper you can play every game and not worry about. So it meant he didn't have to care at all about his backup keeper, so he could prioritize everything else. In saying that, I do agree. I think Jota, great pickup. That's one that I was looking at that was really tempting me. I picked up my two forwards in rounds 3 and 7. And he was sitting there, and that was at the start of round 11. He picked him up, and he was sitting there for 8, 9, and 10. And I was like, I looked at his stats from last year, and even though he may not start every game, his points per game is ridiculously high.
Yeah.
It's worth the risk to have him, but I just didn't want to go away from my strategy, and I'm hoping that pays off. But if he comes out and has a blinder, a 200-point-plus season, it's going to make me look foolish. But the other things I'm worried about, so Koulibaly, he's never played for Chelsea yet. We have no idea if he's going to start. I'm assuming he will, based on the money they put and the fact that they got rid of Rudiger and Christensen. So they've only got Thiago Silva there. But that's a relatively brand new backline. Chilwell's coming off an ACL. They've got Reece James there as well. So it's a bit of a new backline there. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I like Trippier. Ben White's an interesting one. Is he going to still start with Saliba coming back in? A few of the teams I've seen have actually had him playing at right back and Tomiyasu out, but I wouldn't even go that far. I'd see Tomiyasu's probably going to go right back. So a little bit of a risk there. And then Elise, obviously, who knows where he's been. He's been injured all preseason, hasn't played at all, but that's potentially a great pickup. But could he have waited around, picked up someone that was scoring points in the first round and picked him up week 2? Quite possibly. And then, like you said, Nketiah with Jesus there now, not expecting him to do too much. The question is, that was actually the last forward taken in the entire draft, so there wasn't really much else at all. So I think a B is pretty safe. With Salah, Robertson, Foden, and Zaha, you'd still expect him to have a pretty solid season.
I think I agree with the majority of that. The one thing I disagree with when I heard it was the Edison pick. I don't think it's too early, personally, because you're guaranteed 150 points. And he's going around 6. Like, if you look at what comes underneath, so Trippier, Calvert-Lewin, Smith Rowe, White, Jota, Olise, Williams, Nketiah, Sanchez, you can't comfortably you can't guarantee that any of those players are going to get over 150 to 160 points. So I don't mind that pick there. You can see that he's obviously reacted to other keepers starting to go. And I totally get that as well. You don't want to necessarily miss out on a really good keeper if you don't have to. If you think that, you can't get other players who are going to score you more than 160 points, I see no problem in actually picking him up there. That's my takeaway. You might have a different thought, but that's how I sort of see it. But yeah, I think there's definitely some risk there. Obviously, we mentioned, Jota's injured at the moment. And Kedia, you could say Smith Rowe is a bit of a risky one, given that Martinelli will probably start in that spot. Koulibaly, we don't know what Chelsea defense is going to look like straight off the bat. Were there some better defenders there that he could have picked up before Koulibaly? Maybe. But I would say a B as well overall. So I'm quite comfortable with that. Boys, should we look at Gilby? Do we rate ourselves? Is that okay?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean,
we should rate him first and worst.
Yeah, go for it if you want.
Should we give our analysis first?
He could criticize our criticisms. How's that sound? So,
okay, well,
Gilby went for De Bruyne, pick number 2, 17 on the way back, Maddison. Then he went Chilwell, Ronaldo in round 4. So if I just start with those, De Bruyne number 2, can't go wrong. Pretty happy with that. Maddison, end of round 2. Looking at what else was on the board, Foden's still there, Zaha, Bowen and Kulusevski, Mahrez, Sancho, still a few there. Similar to Vardy, it's an interesting one. I have seen a few rumors, and you kind of alluded to it. I don't know if Maddison, you're saying that maybe that if he moves, he's worth more. I don't know if that's what you're maybe alluding to. But I think he can be great. He's got a World Cup to try and play himself into. So that'll help him for the start of the season anyway. But I don't know whether that was necessarily the right play that early. But Chilwell round 3, and if he does anything like he did for his 6 games last year, he's going to be a gun. I had him for those 6 on a pure point per game basis. He annihilated everyone last year. I think he almost averaged 10 points. I can't see him doing that. He did score something like 4 goals in 6 games. But that's a ridiculous return. Ronaldo round 4. Now, this is where it probably gets a little bit tough. Your forwards, you got Ronaldo, Watkins, and Alvarez. Watkins, great. If Ronaldo leaves and Alvarez doesn't play, you're light on. That's probably where a little bit of risk, which individually, sure, you can play one striker, that's fine. But then you got to look at, okay, who's your worst 2 midfielders? Gundogan and Trossard. Gundogan, I had him, can be great, can never get a minute. So if he doesn't play, and then Alvarez doesn't play and Ronaldo leaves, you've only got 12 players left, and the goalkeeper's one of them. So that's where there's a little bit of risk. But like I said in last week's pod, your last 4 picks were probably the riskier ones where you might pick up, or in the short-term ones. So it can work out. Other midfielders with De Bruyne and Maddison, Ward-Prowse, Trossard, Gundogan, like I said, all good attacking threats. I like it. If Gundogan gets minutes, fantastic. Trossard, if he plays up front again, fantastic. Ward-Prowse is a gun, free kick specialist, so he'll get a few goals here and there. Watkins, I think, is a great pickup as well if he starts over Ings all season. Defenders, Chilwell, Digne, Doherty, Tomiyasu, and Kanate. Since the draft, Kanate's done a bit of an injury. I can't remember exactly how long, but has been ruled out for a little bit, which is unfortunate. Tomiyasu, Doherty, Digne, and Chilwell, all wingbacks. I'm assuming that's a bit of a theme, which when we get to Isaacs is the opposite. So it's a bit of an interesting one that he's gone very attacking for that. And a lot of them are set piece takers as well, which I'm assuming isn't by accident there. So I think overall it's a solid team. There's a bit of risk there with Ronaldo, but if it pays off, a round 4 Ronaldo means he's got De Bruyne and Ronaldo 2 first-round picks. So one of those that you're probably happy to take the risk, and you just got to hope it pays off.
Yeah.
What grade did you give me, Mick?
Oh, here we go.
Oh, sorry. I did put you down for a B there as well. The one thing that I'm sure I remember you making comments of it, but if you'd somehow managed to pick up Martial as your 3rd forward, I probably would have gone a straight B easily. But there is a B, and if you'd caught me on a really bad day, I might have put you a little bit lower. But hey, it's holidays for me at the moment, so I'll give you a B.
Yeah, look, I'll cut straight to the chase, Gilby. I'm going with a B as well. I think there's definitely some good picks there. I think you've taken some risks, but they could well be pretty good educated risks as well, and lead to a fair few points. And I think that you've given yourself maybe other than the forwards where you might be a little bit out, depending. you've given yourself flexibility in other areas with some good attacking and the good set piece players. De Bruyne's a great pickup. Maddison has been killing it pre-season, so I can totally understand why you've gone there. I think a lot of people really put a lot of emphasis in attacking defenders. They were really valuable last year. I wonder whether they'll be as valuable this year. So Chilwell as your first defender, third round. I'm not entirely sure about, but if you want an attacking attacking defender, then it's probably the right place to take him, considering what else had gone. So yeah, I think not too bad at all. I'd like to know your strategy, Gilby. That's what I'd love to know, because you've spoken about it. You've alluded to it. Don't leave us guessing, mate. What was the strategy?
Well, last season, I was 100% convinced I drafted comfortably the best team, and that turned out to be very wrong. So I've had a look at some of my old drafts and where I finished that. And what I was aiming towards this year is a bit more of a balanced team with multiple routes to scoring points. Last season, when I looked at it, I believe I had a really elite forward line. At the time, I believed it was really elite forward line. And then I was trying to rotate my defenders all the time. I just deliberately picked with defenders and would look at the fixtures and target shutouts each week, which did not work at all. So what I wanted to do is have multiple routes to points, whether that was set pieces, as you've already identified, whether it was a striker, whether it was a defender that would maybe contribute some attacking points along with a chance at a shutout. I wanted to give myself as many opportunities to score points and then build in a bit more flexibility this season and be willing to take a lottery ticket with my last selections. And yeah, I just tried to have a bit more fun with it, go into it a bit more flexible, and just go with what I felt at the time.
Very good. Look, I'm just going to change the scene quickly back to the draft board, just so people can have a quick look, a reminder. I can't say that I've fixed the audio, unfortunately, but I'm just going to give people a quick look. So I'll do the video. So, boys, let's talk about Craney. Being his first time drafting, picking up Son first is obviously really good. I'll quickly run through the board for those people listening. We've got Son first pick, then Havertz, Van Dijk, Pulisic, Henderson, Mendy, Chelsea goalkeeper, Benrahma, Alonso, Bamford, Target, Ings, Stones, Sinistera, Guaita, and McKenna. So, Mick, we might go to you first. Where do you think Craney sits? What do you think the strengths and weaknesses are of his team? First time he's drafted.
Yeah, that's something you got to keep in mind. The strength to his team is Son. That's almost not the end of it. I think his forward line's okay.
It sounded like the end of it. Once you said it.
He's got Havertz, Bamford, and Ings, which, if you look at it overall, I think that's a solid forward line. He's got options. He can rotate through them based on matches. I think Havertz, I know this is going to sound crazy. Uh-oh. I think Havertz going in the second round might be a bit early.
Are you sure?
Yep. Someone record that. I'll make it my ringtone. I think as well, if you look at his midfield as a whole, Son, Pulisic, Jordan Henderson, Benrahma, and Sinistera, there's not a whole lot of depth there. Sinistera, a little injury at the end of preseason. He's coming from, I believe it was the Dutch League Eredivisie. Apparently he's a gun, but he plays in the team, which could work really well if he plays, but he's out to start with. Jordan Henderson and Pulisic, I think round 4 and 5, both of them probably way too early. Pulisic could be fantastic. It's just, for me, too much risk to go there that early. Henderson just doesn't even play for Liverpool captain, doesn't even guaranteed play. So I think that one's a bit of a risk. Benrahma could be great. West Ham have a lot of those attacking mid and wingers. So it's hard to know who's going to play. And I had Fornells last year. He was good when he played, but it was a bit hard to know when he was going to. So I think his midfield's a little bit potentially weak, you could say. His forward line is relatively strong, but he did go a little bit early for Havertz. I think round 9 and 11 for Bamford and Ings, though, fantastic work. So you could pretty much say they've offset each other, all of those. And then his defenders, you got Van Dijk nice and early, good. Alonso could be fantastic, but it's hard to say. Target, if he has that wing back role for Newcastle, great. Stone's a bit of a risk, but I think there was an injury for someone going around, so it could get a start at the start of the year. And McKenna, I have no idea about. So I think overall it's actually not too bad. He reached a little bit for Havertz. His mids are a little bit weak. I've got him as a C+.
Okay, Gilby.
Yeah, no, pretty much similar to what you think there, Mick. For me, Ben Rama is borderline even draftable. I'd maybe only look at him very late. Alonso, really questionable for me. Bamford is injured again, so he's probably out for at least a month at the moment. And I mean, going on his injury record last season, whether he even makes it back again, I don't know. So to me, yeah, all those things we've already identified, Mick. I was a little bit more harsh, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt and passed him, given it's his first draft. I did a bit of a teacher trick and gone, yeah, you tried really hard, little Johnny. It's a good effort. I gave you a C-.
That doesn't happen, surely. So for me, I can't really say too much that hasn't already been said, other than you may have hinted at the Chelsea bias there as well, because Craney does love Chelsea, and I think that may not pay dividends for him, given some of the picks that aren't starters this season anyway. So I'm gonna go a D plus. Only big and that's taking, like, if I was take away the fact that Craney hasn't done this before, it'd maybe not be a pass mark. So I'm gonna go there, but do I think it's salvageable? Absolutely. Free agency, he'll dip into it. You know, if he's looking at the right stuff, and like watching a few highlights and things like that, he'll get a pretty good grip on where he should go and who he should trade pretty quickly. So I think all is not lost for Craney. I'm sure he'll be able to put a good team together and continue to pick up good points. So that's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, I think I didn't know about Bamford's injury, but if I knew if all three of his forwards were starters, he's got 4 playing defenders. He only needs 3 midfielders. If Pulisic starts with Son and Ben Rama in there, Sinistero as a backup, it's not that bad. I think that there's definitely some room for improvement, but I don't think it'll get completely blown out of the water straight away. Hopefully, he can at least hold on and get free agency happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go and talk about Dave. So he picked up Kane with his first pick.
Immediate F.
Uh-oh. For forward. Well, Gilby, run us through it. So how did Dave go? Who did he pick up?
Yeah, no, I mean, we already hinted at it before. He's gone pretty safe and reliable with his first pick and gone Kane. Then he's gone for the shiny new toy in EPL, Darwin, with his
Dave
second
doesn't
pick.
do that. He never does that.
Loves his shiny new things. We might talk about Draxler if that comes up. Then he's gone double defender next, which is a bit of a surprise for Dave. He's gone Reece James, followed by Perisic.
Probably 2 of the most attacking defenders ever, though. Let's be real.
Yeah, Perisic is a bit of a questionable one for me. I'll come back to that a bit later. Then he's gone 4 mids in a row. Odegaard, St. Maximin, Tielemans, and Lingard. Then gone back to defence for Cresswell and Zinchenko. Back up front for Scamacca, the new West Ham striker from the Serie A, I think from Torino, if I remember right. Then Botman, new transfer in from Eredivisie to finish off his defensive reinforcements. Then he's gone keeper Fabianski, who he's had before. Some unkindly refer to him as Flappy Hansky, but hopefully it doesn't turn out that way for Dave. Then he sharked me for a player I really would have loved with his second last. He's took Jensen, who is taking on Eriksen's role for Brentford, at least at the moment. Whether or not that turns out or not, but I was very annoyed that he took that off me in that second last round. And then he took Bazunu with his last pick as a goalkeeper. So to me, the things that stand out to me, I think Darwin is a risky one. Shiny new toy coming to the EPL. Had a great record, but only for 1 season in Portugal. I think Klopp has come out really heavily supported him. The whole team's heavily supporting him. The Liverpool striker, here, Liverpool and City, everyone's picked for the top 2 in the league. So it could be great. It could be mid of the pack at least. So that's a risky one. Perisic to me is a little early, given he's 33 now, I think, 32 or 33 years old, and playing a wing-back system for Conte, who works his wing backs real hard. That was maybe a little early, but could be great. I mean, but when I look at his team across the board, there's no real weaknesses that stand out. A couple of selections that may turn out a little bit, like with Perisic and Darwin there. So to me, I was really, really happy with Dave's drafting. And I gave him, I was debating an A- or a B+. I went an A-, so I was really, really happy. I'd be really happy if I had Dave's team.
Great. I might jump in here before you, Mick, if that's okay.
Go for
it. I sort of agree. I think Darwin, yeah, he might be a little bit risky, but he will play games, especially with the injuries they've got at the moment. I like the backs. I like James, Perisic, Creswell, Zinchenko, Botman. I think that's really, really good. And I like the midfield in terms of like there's no outstanding midfield, and you have to sort of, if you don't pick up a premium midfielder at the very beginning, you sort of just have to deal with that. But I think he's gone really, really solid. I really, really like it as well. But you know, I think it's a really good base to start from. So for Dave, I'm going to B+. I think it's pretty good. The only thing I guess I worry about just that tiny little bit is maybe the forwards in terms of Skamaka and Darwin, how well they're going to go, how much game time they're going to get to start with. But otherwise, yeah, B+, pretty solid, I reckon.
I'll start with, on our YouTube comments, we actually have the man who's explained his strategy himself. So I will explain that.
Hey, let's
go. He has said, first 5 rounds, his aim was just to get the highest potential point scorers available. Rounds 6 to 10, I just wanted to fill out my squad and a few regular minute players. Rounds 11 through 15, goalkeepers and high-risk players. So kind of filled in a similar strategy to what I was saying in last week in terms of leave your goalkeepers to the end. There's not that much in terms of differential between the, say, 5th goalkeeper through to the 20th, if you can get a fit and playing keeper. So I think, yes, your premiums are still there, but the rest of them are okay. So I think in terms of that, he's done pretty well. If I look at it overall, though, I just went through it then. So you've got Darwin, Perisic, Lingard, Zinchenko, Skamaka, Botman, Jensen, and Bazzuno. So that's 8 players that are new to their teams. That, to me, signals a little bit of risk. Now, yes, you've got Bazzuno, technically, I think, within the league, not that he's played for Man City to Southampton. Zinchenko within the league, Lingard within the league, so you could argue that they're not that risky. And Perisic has played for Conte, so yes, it's not as bad as I'm making it sound. The other thing I would look at is, personally, I would not have had Darwin that high. I was never going to pick Darwin. If he was available in the 6th round, maybe. But I think with Diaz, Firmino, Jota, Salah, and him, 5 spots, 3 players, it's always going to be a bit of risk. He's probably going to play because of that. I guess the money he's put in. I think Bobby's on his way out, and Jota's always injured, but still a little bit too much risk there for me. What I look at, though, is who has the potential to haul in his team. If I look at his team, yes, Kane can haul massively. James can, theoretically.
Yeah.
And yeah, you look at his midfielders, Odegaard, St. Max, Tielemans, Lingard. None of them really strike me as guys that are going to score me 10 points very often. Zinchenko, Creswell, Botman, probably not. So I think if I look at his team, yes, it's safe. But if I compare that to, say, Gilby, De Bruyne, Maddison, Chilwell, Ronaldo, Watkins, Digne, all of those guys have had multiple 10-pointers in a single year. So I think there's a bit more safety to Dave's in certain aspects, but there's less haul potential. I think Kane's a better chance to hauling than De Bruyne, but De Bruyne will have more 8-point rounds and less 2-point rounds. So it'll be an interesting one. I guess at the end of the day, though, it doesn't matter. It's overall points. But I still think there's not many massive hitters there. And I guess that happens when you don't pick a midfielder until round 5, which is very much away from the strategy with other people have gone forward in the past, and that's won them the league. So,
absolutely. It's a risk not going for a midfielder earlier on, but obviously he saw value elsewhere in the defenders. And as I said, and talk about it when they get to me as well. Like was a common theme. Like defenders sort of started to pop up a bit earlier than what maybe they have in previous drafts that we've had. So that'll be an interesting one to talk about as we move through.
For Dave's benefit, I'm going to go a B- just because I think there's
Okay.
a little bit of rotation risk there. But I still think definitely a pass. If I'd walked into a league and I got given that team, I wouldn't be horrifically disappointed. I wouldn't have thought that I got shafted and that someone did it for me, but still not the team I would have picked.
See, as a teacher, then I look at those three and I say, well, overall B+. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, cool. Let's move on. So, Dave, you're listening. B+, buddy. Well done. Good job. Try a little bit harder next time. We'll get you that A. All right. Good man. Well done.
I gave you an A, Dave.
No, well, it takes an average like Gilby to report on somebody. So, okay, boys, it's my turn now. Have at it. Do you want me to quickly read through my list and then you guys can go to town on it? Does it sound good?
Go for it.
Perfect. So I went Haaland first, Bruno Fernandes second, then Bowen, then Kulusevski, Bernardo, Guimaraes, Bruno Guimaraes, Lloris, Ivan Toney, Gabriel, defender from Arsenal, Romero, defender from Tottenham, Martial as my third forward, Martinez, who the new pickup for Manchester United defender, Diego Carlos, who was a centre-back for Aston Villa, Dunk, and Pickford was my final pick. So, boys, have at it.
So to me, I think it's really solid, as you'd expect. Isaac was our former two-time champion. He's going for a hat-trick that Nate stopped him this season. So, I mean, as you'd expect, Isaac's drafted well. To me, the only thing I can probably pick you up on is all 5 of your mids have a question mark against them. It could turn out really well for you, or it could... So I'll go
What's
to them.
Bowen's question mark other than getting 150 points?
So to me, Bruno Fernandes in the second round, I think it's a correct position for him. The question is, are you getting the Fernandes that arrived in the league, or are you getting the Fernandes of last season, particularly if Ronaldo stays? I think even if Ronaldo stays, he was still one of the only midfielders actually creating chances for us. So I think, to me, I'd be really happy with that selection. But to me, that's the question mark there. Bowen, can he repeat that season is that question mark. Because as Mick's already identified, West Ham have got a lot of attacking mids. If you can't repeat that season, then it's a third round mid where potentially from previous seasons, I think he was being drafted mid to late rounds. So that's the question mark on Bowen. Kulusevski, does he keep his spot from Richarlison? Because I've seen a lot of people predicting that Richarlison coming across from Spurs maybe goes to that right wing spot to start. Because if you have the attacking three, you have Son on the left, Kane up front, and Kulusevski to the right. Whether Richarlison is a rotation piece to cover Kane and Son, maybe, or is he starting? For whose spot does he take? He's probably not going to take Son or Kane. In that case, he takes Kulusevski. So that's the question mark there. Bernardo Silva was great last season. Whether he makes the starting team, whether he maybe goes to Barcelona or elsewhere, that's the question mark there. And Bruno Guimaraes, great when he arrived in the season. Can a defensive holding midfielder from Newcastle score that many points again? Because defensive midfielders aren't rated highly at all in fantasy generally. So to me, that's the question mark there. But I mean, again, as Mick kind of hinted with Dave, if someone handed me that team, I'd be really happy with that team. It's really solid. I think you're going to be in amongst the top half of the league again all season. I think it's a B+.
Yeah, I'm along the same kind of lines. I think your first 4 picks, I can't fault them. I don't know whether it's my preference to strategy getting in the way. I wouldn't have gone for my 4th and 5th mids in round 5 and 6, personally. I look at Bernardo and Guimaraes, potentially great signings. From what I've seen about Guimaraes, the system they're going to play, they're likely to have Willock and Joelinton in the middle there with him. Out of those 3, Guimaraes is the most defensive, so less likely to get forward. In saying that, he kind of played a similar role last year. So if he gets forward, Newcastle, you'd expect them to improve this year with funding just, I guess, improving every year. I personally wouldn't have got there. In saying that, you look at your forwards, Haaland and Toney, you can't really do much better than that. Martial as a third, as the risk forward, I think it's great because if he ends up being the starter for Man U, your forward line's phenomenal, your midfield's great. Then you look at your back line where you picked up your first back in round 9, Gabriel Romero, Lisandro Martinez, Diego Carlos, and Dunk. All centre backs, all with the exception maybe of Martinez, goal threats from set piece, which I'm assuming that was deliberate, or at least somewhat deliberate. My question mark is, who is Arsenal's preferred centre back pairing? I assume Gabriel. I think he was better than Ben White, but they never seem confident as to who it's going to be. Romero, I think this year will start every game, but I think, who knows? They've also just bought Longley. In a back three, they've also got Dyer, Ben Davies, Longley, Romero, Davinson Sanchez. So there's a few options there. After that, Martinez, Maguire's the captain. Does that mean they're leaving out Varane? It's a little bit of a question mark because that's a massive call if that is what they're doing. Diego Carlos, I haven't actually seen him at all. I know Villa just came to Australia. I don't know if he travelled. I don't know if he played.
Yeah, he did.
Is he likely to start in place of Konsa and Mings? If he does, potentially a great signing. Dunk, I don't think you can go wrong. I think for 14th round, Dunk's a very, very
not
solid
bad,
signing.
I thought, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think midfield, I think, is fine. I don't know if there's full question marks that Gilby's referring to. I think I still would have probably picked a defender earlier in round 5 or 6. Looking at the guys you could have got, like your Trippiers, your Dignes, Dalot, Cucurella, Laporte. I think there's a few guys probably to take out the Diego Carlos and Martinez, the two newies to the league personally. And I don't think you would have lost too much in that. So, I think from my point of view is you look at that and you've picked up someone in round 12 that you must play because you have to play at least 3 defenders. So theoretically, one of your round 12, 13, 14, 15 players must play, which my strategy this year was almost the opposite, to make sure by round 10, I have my 10 outfield players. So I think that's probably a little bit of a strategy difference that I would have looked at. But I think overall, you can't really fault it. If Bernardo Silva leaves the league, might hurt you a little bit. And if what Gilby's saying is true and Richarlison starts, if Kulusevski goes to right wing back, may still produce, but not to the same extent. So it'll be an interesting one. I still don't think it's a bad team by any stretch. If Haaland fires, you're in for a good year.
What's the rating, Mick? Come on.
Well, I don't actually think I wrote one down when I got to this before.
Oh, gee.
No, I did. I had an A- for you.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So you're the highest so far from me.
Well, so like I said, I literally didn't have a strategy. Like I wanted a top 5 pick because at least I knew who I would probably pick. Other than that, didn't have anything. I generally don't go in looking at, well, I want to make sure that I pick up this position here, this position here, this position here. I do have a bit of a tiered system, but they're very large. And it's basically, I look at the players who I think will get 200 points plus, 150 to 200, 100 to 150, so on and so forth. So I had that. And pretty much as I went through, like it got to my second pick and I'm like, well, who do I trust at this point who's going to be nailed on getting attacking returns for a fairly decent team? As much as some people might say that Manchester United aren't a decent team anymore, I think that Fernandes still has that potential and he's got 200 points plus before. So that was, for me, somewhat of a no-brainer. I was surprised that Bowen was still there in round 3. It's that late, to be honest with you. Like, he may not achieve 200 points again, sure, but he still is the best player in that team. What is still a pretty good team. So again, I'm confident that he'd get 150 points plus. Kulusevski, again, he'd definitely start game week 1 because Richarlison's not he's out. He's suspended. I really rated him. I think he had a really good last season. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't continue on. Whether he gets the amount of game time, who knows? But, there's risk in every player that we pick up at that point in time. But in terms of round 4 for a midfielder, when you've got people like Sancho, Martinelli, Mahrez, you could argue that Martinelli and Kulusevski are in the same boat, realistically, in my opinion. Guimaraes had a really good season, so I was happy to pick him up. And it got to a point where after that, at round 7, I thought, well, where do I go now? Larissa I was happy with because, again, 150 points, I'm pretty certain he'll probably get. I think Tottenham will travel pretty well. When it got to the backs, Gabriel, Romero, like I went for centre backs because, and I went for these centre backs because I think they're pretty well nailed on. You could argue that maybe they're not, but I'm pretty confident that they'll start, at least at the beginning of the year. Varane hasn't played any preseason, so I think Martinez will start the season. They might play back three. I don't know what they will play, what they won't play, but considering the new manager has brought him in, I would consider that he should play. We'll see how that goes. So I went for centre backs knowing that they may not be the most attacking, but what I had done in taking those midfielders was miss out on the majority of those attacking defenders. And so I was comfortable enough with that because I figure that there'll be enough wiggle room in free transfers to be able to pick others up if I need to. I've done it before, so I figure, hey, we'll see how that rolls on. So I like the team. We'll see how it goes. Just like any team, there's good things, there's bad things. But yeah, we'll move on. So I don't have to rate myself, do I? We decided we didn't have to. Yeah, perfect. So Dan, let's have a look. We've got Diaz with his first pick, then Jesus. Diaz with his third pick, but now the defender. Mahrez, Rashford, Cucurella, Dalot, Richarlison, Walker, Wilson. So that's Harry Wilson, I believe, from... is he playing for Bournemouth now?
Fulham.
Sarr, Martinez. So 2 keepers in a row. Solanke, Harrison, and Saliba, who is the Arsenal centre-back who may start with Gabriel at this point in time. We'll have to wait and see. So, Gilby, what do we sort of make of Dan's pickings at this point in time?
Yeah, no, I think it was a much better draft than Dan has maybe produced in the past. I was pretty pleased with that. To me, if I had to pick some weaknesses, I would say Ruben Dias is his first defender. I mean, he's the most reliable pick in the City backline, so I can understand it. But to me, when I look at some of the other defenders that are available there, I would have gone more attacking, but that's my personal preference. I can certainly understand why you would take Diaz. So, I mean, I don't think it's a bad pick as such, but if I'm picking, that's probably something that did stand out to me, taking him that early. Other than that, yeah, so it's a tough one for me. Richarlison, I've already kind of highlighted. Jesus is moving to Arsenal. He'll definitely start for them. Nketiah is sitting there, though. So if it doesn't work out for him, then his strikers become Richarlison, who may or may not play for Spurs, and Solanke, who the last time he was in the Premier League didn't do much of anything. So the forward line is maybe a little thin. But I think one of the picks that stood out for me as well, late on, Jack Harrison. I definitely had him on the board there, given that Sinisterra's out injured. And Harrison's been good in the past for me. So I like that one. I like his defenders in general. Cucurella may end up actually screwing me because I've heard now he's apparently a lot more strongly linked with Chelsea rather than City. So that could well affect my Chilwell pick. So that could sting. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure for Dan whether he'd shear more for City, Chelsea, or Brighton. I think if he stays at Brighton, he'll be good. If he goes to Chelsea, he'll be a rotation player. City, rotation player. So again, like if you've got Diaz and Cucurella as your best, Dalot looks like he'll be our right back. Walker, maybe the City right back. Saliba may or may not play for Arsenal. So it could be good. It could turn out badly for Dan, and it went badly for him last season. So I'm hoping it's an improvement. I think it's better drafting from him. I'm going to go a B-.
I guess I was with him when he was doing that, the draft that night. He followed the same, I guess, general structure as me. First 10 all outfield players, left one of each position, 2 goalkeepers after that. We also, I don't know whether it was a benefit or a hindrance yet, because we obviously had our picks back to back. So we could kind of know, I said, oh, well, I'm not looking for this position, which could have been a good thing, could have been a bad thing. And there was no like screwing around, say I'm not picking a defender to pick a defender. When I look at his team, Jesus, I think could be great to get him in the second round. Pretty good, I think. I think it's probably justified where he is with how good he's been in preseason. I think Mahrez could be a phenomenal player this year. I think the easiest way for me to look at it, though, is you look at all of his mids: Diaz, Mahrez, Rashford, Wilson, Harrison. With Sinistera, I don't know what Harrison's going to play. It was second last pick, though, so fair enough. Wilson, I think, could be really good. Fulham, I think he's one of their main attacking outlets, so solid mid-table player, great. Mahrez and Rashford are a tough one, and potentially Diaz as well. So all three of them play wing for a very dominant attacking team against a lower table team, but you can't guarantee where they're going to play. I think this is one of this. You look at Dan's team and you almost want Cucurella to stay. You want Dalot to play. Cucurella stays because then Walker's more likely to play as well. So there's like a double up for him. If Cucurella goes, it kind of hurts him both ways. I guess he's guaranteed one of them to play, but you just never know which ones. You kind of have to hold both. But Mahrez, Rashford, and Diaz, I would assume one of those is going to come off the bench every week. And unfortunately, you have to play them all unless you're going to miss out on the points. So like Gilby said, though, forward line, Richarlison, it's hard to know. Solanke, hey, even if he gets you 2 guaranteed points, sits on your bench, it's better than the other forwards that were left. So I was in a similar boat. I left my forwards till late. You just take whatever's left at that stage. So I think overall it's okay. There's probably some that reached a little bit high, but I think with his team, though, there's a lot of upside. It could go really, really well for him. It's just you just don't know. It's not a risk-free team. I think that's the easiest way to put it. So I'm going to go safe. I'm going to go B again, but it has the potential to turn into an A team very quickly. It could also go into a C- D+ team very quickly. So there's a little bit of risk there. But if it all goes well, yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah. Did you give a rating? You did. Sorry, I just blanked out for a second.
Yeah,
you went B.
I went a straight B, but
My
I said
apologies.
it could go to an A.
That's right. So I'm going B-. I don't mind the team. I think, there's definitely risk there. I think that yourself and Dan having to pick where you picked is probably the toughest to start, like with the first picks that you guys had. So I think that, there's definitely risk in the midfield, but there's upside there. Like there's a high ceiling potentially, which, could really, really go well for him. So, happy to sort of go with a B- there. I think you've done pretty solid. So I'd be interested to see what he maybe changes and tinkers with over the next couple of weeks as well, once he sort of sees how the team's playing. And I guess that leads us into you, Mick. So let's have a bit of a chat about your team. Now, I might read this one out, but I might do it differently if that's okay. I might read like your goalkeepers, then your defenders, your mids, then your forwards. Do we think that might be okay? Let's give that a go. I'm going to go with goalkeepers, De Gea and Roddick. We'll go with our defenders. You picked up Alexander-Arnold, Tierney, an old favourite of yours, Cash, Connor Cody, and Jansen. Midfielders, you went Saka, Sancho, Barnes, Bailey, Neto. And then your forwards, you went Wilson, Mitrovic, and I'm going to pronounce this totally wrong. Does anyone else know how to pronounce it? I'm going to say Awoniyi.
I'm going to take a stab at Awoniyi.
Awoniyi. Yeah, cool. I like it. I might start. I love your midfield. Got to say, I think it's quality. Saka, Sancho, Barnes. Sancho could be a bit of a risk given last year, obviously, but I think the way that the new manager wants to play, he's probably a good bet, and he played pretty well preseason. Bailey, Neto, they're two like bandwagon fantasy choices at this point in time. Everyone's sort of getting on them because of their price. Obviously, we don't play by price, but picking them up in rounds 10 and 11 is probably pretty good for that point in time. So yeah, love your midfield. Obviously, you've gone pretty attacking with at least three of your picks for your defense, which I really love as well. TAA, Tierney, Cash. Is Tierney injured at the moment? Is he ready to go?
I believe so.
I think he's okay. I haven't heard anything.
Cool. Just he's been injured a lot, so I'm sure that's something that Mick, you will navigate through the season. Obviously, your forwards, Wilson, Mitrovic, Awaniyi. Let's go with that. Probably like maybe not as strong. Wilson always starts the year strong. Mitrovic scored a ton of goals last year, but will it translate? He hasn't got a great track record in the Premier League. But I really like your team overall. I'd probably go an A, to be fair. That's just me.
All right.
I like the team. I can see
Yeah.
how it can work.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, the thing that stands out to me is if I look at your strikers. So if I look at Callum Wilson, very injury prone, could be great, but very injury prone. If I look at Mitrovic, could be great, very red card prone, and coming up from the championship where he hasn't been great in the past. And then your third striker is Awaniyi. So to me, one of those strikers is more than likely to be out most weeks for whatever reason. And a Forest striker, whether or not he scores or not. So if I'm saying you've got to play, maybe you decide to only play one striker, then that means you're going to play at a minimum, either you're going to play all 5 defenders or you're going to be forced to play one or both of Bailey and Neto. So that to me would be the only weakness there, because Bailey may or may not play. He has looked pretty solid. I think that is a good pickup that late in the draft. I was looking at him there as well. So I think he's solid there. Neto, very bad injury record, but could be great. So that could be a really great pickup for you too. But yeah, if things go badly for you with either injuries or suspensions, then you could go pretty thin on the ground. But yeah, I mean, I like the draft. I'm not going to be as generous as Isaac with an A there. But I think it's nice middle of the road. I'd be pretty happy with that draft. I'm going to B.
Fair enough. I mean, my theory with forwards was got to get 2 that are playing. At least have, as in guaranteed starters. Obviously, you can't predict injuries and red cards and whatever. But assuming their teams, assuming they are fully fit, they're starting for their team. Yes, Newcastle, that may change with signings or whatever. But I think right now, he's their best striker. He's more prolific than Chris Wood. Joelinton's kind of become a midfielder. So I think he's going to start for them. Mitrovic, if he can get half of what he gets from last year. And I realize, and I'm saying this in terms of they assume it's something like 50% of what they do in the championship translates to the Prem. So if he gets 50% of that to 20, if he gets half of that 20, gets 10 goals, I'll take that from a Fulham striker. If I can guarantee Callum Wilson and another 10-goal striker, I think I'm in for a decent season, particularly where I picked them up. So I think there was a bit of risk in that. My goalkeepers, a bit of rotation. I think I've seen Leno's just signed for Fulham, which could hurt me a little bit, but I would assume Rodak will start the first game at least. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. I doubt Leno's gone there to sit on the bench at Fulham instead of sitting on the bench at Arsenal. So I'm assuming he'll start there, but I also don't think that's something other people are likely to jump in and trade for straight away. It'd be an interesting one if they did, but there's always other goalkeepers there. But De Gea is going to start for Man U every game he's fit, so there's worse players available there. So I think overall I'm pretty happy with it. There's not too much I would change. Yes, Tierney's a little bit of a risk in round 5 with Zinchenko going there now, but there's a lot of rumour he won't play in that role. The ones like I was saying is I did pick up Mitrovic in round 7. Jota was sitting there until round 11, and it was very, very, very tempting to pick him up earlier. I managed to stay away from it. As for Awaniyi, I picked him up in round 14 on the way back. So I picked him up in pick number 120 something of the draft. It was the third last forward available, to get picked up. The 2 after were Alvarez and Kedia. So it probably shows you who was available. I looked at them. He seemed like the most likely to start. So that's purely why I got him there. And like I said last week, those last 3 positions of each, so Janssen, Awaniyi, and I think Neto, they're kind of my guys that I'm like, look, start the season, I'll pick them, and they're rotation fodder. So Bailey and Neto, both of them, it's basically which one of those is more likely to keep playing. At this rate, I'd probably say it's Bailey. The other one can go in the can and get shot back into free agency, and I'll pick up someone new if needed. So I think pretty happy with how it looks to start. Hopefully it actually performs that well, though.
Yep. I think Wilson for me, yeah, I could see being a bit of a reach, but I would suggest that you'd almost think that Vardy would be available then. Like if you're going through that, you're like, oh yeah, well, third pick, I'll pick up Vardy because I think he'll be there, and I think you would have been pretty happy with picking up someone like Vardy at that point in time, right? So
Absolutely.
I think maybe Wilson's a touch of a reach, but at the same time, if you look down at the forwards after that who've picked up compared to the ones that have gone before, well, which one do you go with if you're really wanting to get someone in round 3 to make sure you've got someone? Like, do you go Antonio, who's injury prone and hardly scored anything in the back end of last year, Ronaldo, who may not be there, Watkins, who, will he play the whole season? Is he going to be nailed on? Calvert-Lewin, injury problems as well. Like, who do you go with? So I can understand why you've gone Wilson. Could you have held off a couple more rounds? Probably. But again, like I say, I like the team. So I think you've got enough flexibility there to play one striker if you want to. But I can see Wilson and Mitrovic at least both starting the season. So I think you've got some pretty good options there, which is good. Let's move on to Nathan, shall we? So we'll do the same thing. So goalkeepers, Ramsdale and Meslier. I'm going to say that wrong. I believe it's pronounced something different. Gilby, would you like to correct me?
I think it's Melier.
Melier, thank
French.
you. Because he's French for yogurt. So from there, we move into defenders. So Laporte, Matip, Dyer, Semedo, and Ricardo Pereira from Leicester. We'll jump into his mids. He's gone Mount, Coutinho, Martinelli, Rodri, Fornals. And then we look at forwards. So he's gone Vardy, Welbeck, and Johnson from Forest. So, Mick, what do you take? We've already spoken about Vardy a little bit, obviously, but did he recover from that point, do we think?
I think his next 3 picks, great. Mount, Coutinho, Martinelli, great. Laporte and Matip, they were an interesting 2 at that stage, I found.
Old faithfuls, I think, for Nathan.
That's, I think, where it was. I mean, I say maybe it was a bit of a reach, but you could
Laporte
almost
got 160 points or something last year.
You could argue they're guaranteed starters in the team. I guess the other players available at the time were Trippier, Digne, Doherty, Alonso. So there's not too much else, really. I mean, if you can get a guaranteed starter in a Man City or a Liverpool defence, they're going to score you good points. So
it's always handy, yeah.
Unfortunately, I think Matip's injured himself already in preseason, or was it Konate that's done that? One of Liverpool guys has. Konate has. Okay, well, Matip looks even better now then. Less rotation risk right now. Where I think it lets him down a little bit, I think overall his forwards are a little bit weak. Welbeck could be great. It's hard to know. If you're going to talk about injury risk, well, there's your pin-up boy just about. Brendan Johnson, I mean, if he's a starting player on pens, it's not too bad. Guaranteed 2 points, just probably not going to get much more than that very often. It's Rodri and Fornals. Rodri particularly, I think it was a bit of I think that's a big reach, really big reach. Round 7? Yeah, round 7 there. Ramsdale round 8's okay. Fornals round 9. I was a big fan of Fornals last year.
Yeah,
It's hard to know who they're going to pick. Because
when you look at the midfield after that, like who the midfielders got picked after that, I don't mind that pick. And I don't mind Rodri, maybe a bit high, but
I'd personally be looking at your Harry Wilson, though, probably before Fornals in that sense, because he's a more guaranteed starter. Yes, he may not give you your attacking returns as often, but if you play every game, you get 4 points. If you come off the bench attacking return and don't get a start on the other, it's still 4 points. So I'd prefer 180 minutes and the chance to get more than 30 minutes with the occasional return, which I guess is my risk-averse strategy generally, which is why I try and avoid your Jotas, your Martials, those types of guys. So I think overall it's not too bad. That in patches, it's really strong. I think Vardy, if you look at it holistically, Mount, Coutinho, Martinelli, Laporte, Matip, Ramsdale, that's a great 6 to build your team around. Vardy as well, 7. It's the drop-off after that. Semedo and Ricardo and Dyer, a bit of a risk. Tottenham's defense, I don't know if Dyer's going to start. Semedo, injury-prone. Wolves weren't phenomenal last year, and he's not the attacking outlet wing-back like others. And Ricardo, I think, has maybe done an injury as well. There's a few guys that have been injured since that draft. So he was the last pick up, so it doesn't really change too much. But yeah, overall, I'll give him. I would like his team less than a few of the others, so I guess I can't go a B. I still think it's a pass. If I got given that team, it's workable. There's enough of the key players that you need to build a draft around. We'll go a C plus, B minus, C plus. I'll go C plus.
Yeah, cool.
I'm going to be a bit meaner. Rodri in round 7 was my comfortable pick for worst pick of the draft. I don't think he should have been drafted. So to draft him in round 7,
You think worse than Henderson at 5?
yes.
No,
I can
disagree. I disagree.
Disagree.
I'd rank them pretty close together as worst picks, but to me, Henderson is at least more attacking, whereas Rodri, I don't know how many goals he scored in his entire career, but
hey, but when he does, they're memorable.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I mean, Henderson pick 5. Yeah, I gave a Cranny a pass to that because he kind of based on name and he wouldn't really have followed it too much. But for Nathan, who's been with us for a long time, to draft a defensive mid that early, I thought was not a pick at all. But he's gone there. To me, that again, similar sort of thing. If Vardy is injured and Welbeck is injured, then he's left with Johnson up front. And then he has to play his midfield. Mount, Coutinho, Martinelli, I can support those. Coutinho, I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit of a reach for me there. But if his forwards don't work out, then playing Rodri and Fornals most weeks, I don't think is going to work out. So to me, it's too thin. It has some of those issues that we've identified before. Vardy was way too early. Coutinho, Johnson, I would have rather had Awaniyi than Johnson, but that's for me. I would have gone a D, but given Nate absolutely burnt me last season and left me with a giant egg on my face, I have to pass him. So I'm saying a C minus for the fact that he's our reigning champ.
And look, we know his play during the season's pretty good. Like that's how he won it last year. I think he's drafted better than what he drafted last year, to be fair. So, I don't see a Pepe in there, which is good. So I think that I definitely think it's a pass. I think it's bordering like a sort of a C plus B minus if I'm being generous. I don't mind the midfield. I think maybe Rodri could be someone else, and if he was someone else, I think that midfield would be in a pretty good position. And then we'll just have to see what happens with some forwards moving forward. So not too bad. I guess then we move on to Ben, who's our last one. So Ben, looking at the goalkeepers, Allison and Henderson, 2 goalkeepers there. Then he went with his backs, Cancelo, Thiago Silva, Maguire, Ben Davies, and Walker Peters. So he finally got some one of his Southampton boys in there. Midfield, Sterling, Grealish, Ericsson, Gallagher, and Fraser. And then forwards, Antonio, Mbuemo, and Firmino was his last 40 picked up in round 14. So Gilby, what are your thoughts there? I think first 3 picks pretty solid, personally.
Yeah, well, I knew it would have done Mick's heart good to see Sterling go in the top 10.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just warmed his heart.
He would have loved that one. But yeah, I was surprised that Cancelo was still there. I thought he would have maybe gone earlier. So yeah, I rate that one. Sterling, he's become a little bit of a meme. I think maybe a little bit unfairly because he has been elite before.
He just scores points though. Like he still scored like 150 points last year. It's ridiculous.
Yep. So I mean, if he becomes one of the main Chelsea attacking outlets, which it looks like he probably will be, then that's a great pick. Grealish, that's a hard one for me. I would not like to have Grealish in my team because he's one of those ones where if he plays, then yeah, he'll be good. He's a lot more likely to be a player off the bench to maybe cover attacking positions. And
who's he competing with? Sterling's gone, mate. Who's he competing with?
So this is the thing. Well, which one do we go with? So at the moment, if I had to guess, I would say that Mahrez has the position on the right, Haaland has the position up front, and then on the left, I'm going to say Foden. So Grealish kind of plays across the front 3 there. So because other than that, you think Alvarez is probably covering for Haaland, maybe also on the left. And then we've got Palmer or maybe even Bernardo Silva. So I think they're a little bit, he's probably a little bit more likely to play than he was last season, yeah, with Sterling gone. But I think Foden has the first selection with that that spot there. You may disagree, but that's the best attacking three for me at City. So, but other than that, I mean, I think it was really solid. Ericsson that late, I liked that pick. Gallagher, I'm not sure on. Whether or not he stays at Chelsea or not defines the quality of that pick. If he stays at Chelsea, it's not a good pick. If he goes to another team, it's a great pick because
I
he was
think,
absolutely great for Palace
oh
last
yeah,
season.
in my opinion, is if Chelsea keep him and don't play him, they are stupid. Honestly, like he will change the dynamic of that team just by being in it. That's just my opinion because he was at Palace. So I hope that if Chelsea keep him, they actually play him because he is quality.
It just depends on their structure, though, because I know that Tuchel or Tuchel, however you pronounce it, or whichever we're going with at the moment, he generally goes a little bit defensive at the center of the park there. So I'm seeing most predictions are saying that Kante has one role, and then the other role probably goes Jorginho. So does Gallagher probably maybe be the backup for Jorginho, and maybe Kovacic is the backup for maybe both of them? I don't know. But that's a tough one for me to kind of take that earlier player that may or may not play at all if he stays at Chelsea. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty solid. I was really, really happy for him that he got a Southampton player and a good one with one of his last selections with Walker Peters. I would have liked to have him in my team. And having a late lottery pick on Firmino to maybe score some goals is good. I think it's a pretty solid draft from Ben. I went a B minus.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm too dissimilar. I don't think Grealish is as bad a pick as it could be. Yes, there's rotation risk, but remember that's going to be pick 27 of the draft, so it is quite late. He was last of the third round. I look at his team and his forward line worries me. Antonio, Mbeumo, Firmino, even if he does play, isn't a forward. I realize that was the fourth last forward. It was the second last round pick, second last round. So it is what it is. Cancelo, great. Thiago Silva, I would say, will be a guaranteed starter in that team. His fitness is going to be the issue as a 36-year-old, something like that. But Koulibaly's coming in. They've lost Christensen and Rudiger, so I don't really know who else they have other than Chalobah. And there's Sarr as well, I think, another guy from Chelsea.
The Chalobah merry-go-round will continue.
They're apparently bringing in a few.
Okay. I think Maguire's a good pickup, to be honest. I literally turned my microphone off the other night. I turned to Dan. I pointed at Maguire's name and said, I want to pick this guy up, but I don't want the ridicule attached to it. So I didn't pick him up. I ended up going Connor Cody instead, so a little bit less risky. Well, not less risky, a little bit less egg on the face if it goes wrong. So I think that's a good pickup. Ben Davies, probably not as much. From everything I've seen, he's a left back, a left-sided centre back. The way they're likely to play is Perisic or Sessegnon or Reguilon, whoever it is at left back, is going to play a lot higher. So that left centre back needs to be able to effectively play left back. So it needs to be quite mobile, which does help Davies. They had, I think it was Davinson Sanchez playing there in whatever preseason game they were having, and he just got annihilated. So then rumour is Longley came in after that and steadied the ship a lot. So I would expect he's probably going to be there. In saying that, Longley wasn't picked up in our draft. There's an easy straight swap there if that is what it is. So yep. I don't think it's that bad. Fraser, fourth last round, could be great. If he stays fit, he can play. He's got a couple of good forwards there with Wilson as well, who did they go way back to Bournemouth or somewhere before that as well? He used to play with them. So a bit of a link there as well. So a bit of an interesting one, but I don't think he's drafted too poorly. There's a couple of reaches. I think obviously Gallagher, he's picked on Palace form, not on Chelsea form. So that one's a bit of I would say a mistake. So I think there's only probably two or three there that maybe you look at going, oh, I don't know about that. Allison in the fifth round, but like Isaac said, you can't really blame it. You look at the guys you had to pick up after, and Allison's going to score more points, assuming he stays fit. So I would say it's probably about a C+ as well. If I look at all the teams, it's not my favorite team, but would I prefer it to Nathan's? Probably about the same on par. So C+.
Yeah. Look, C plus for me as well. I think this is a question for Gilby. Where does Ericsson fit into Man U team? That's my one concern. Like Ericsson, are they going to play him in Champions League? Are they going to play him in the league? Are they going to play him consistently? I struggle to understand where he's going to actually fit at this point.
Yeah, it's a hard one. Because it depends if we play a 4-2-3-1 or we play a 4-3-3 or some variant of that. But a lot of eggs, I think, at the moment are being put on the hope that we maybe get De Jong from Barcelona. If we do, then he's a massive upgrade on holding midfield on Fred. So that means he'd probably be more likely to play twin number 8s and probably play both
Yeah.
Fernandes and Ericsson. If we don't pick him up, then it's kind of trouble because Ericsson, I don't really see playing a box-to-box role. I think he's more of a solid playmaker.
Yeah.
So he's kind of only number 10, and that's Fernandez's best position too. So Fernandez is probably arguably more box-to-box. So it's a tough one. I think it could work out great. I think Ericsson, when he plays, will be on dead ball. And if you think him crossing the ball to Ronaldo, that could work out great for him. And I really like Ericsson as a player and a person as well. So, I mean, I've always got a bent of picking up players I like. So, yeah, I mean, I really like the pick, but yeah, it could wind up being a highly paid bench warmer.
Yeah, fair enough. So I think, yeah, there's a few little risks in there, but I got to say, I think Ben's drafted pretty well and nothing that can't be changed in free agency relatively quickly if things need to happen. And like I said at the very beginning, I think overall, this is probably one of the better drafting one of the better drafts we've had in terms of, not too many questionable picks. Everyone's got solid teams to start. And I think that it'll just be interesting to see how people adapt as the season goes on. So I think that's pretty good. So given we've done that, we're going to cross to Gilby, if you will. You've got a few things to talk us through in regards to some numbers that you'd like to bring our way.
Yeah, we were going to get into this last season, but a nameless podcaster crashed the podcast early, so we'll leave that. So a few notes that I had for everyone for this season that might help for the standard fantasy and the draft fantasy. So something to note, you can now play a 5-2-3. So you can play all 5 defenders now for the first time. So you only need to play 2 midfielders now. So the rules have changed that you only need to play 3 defenders and 1 striker. So there's no actual minimum 3 midfielders anymore. So that may change it for some people. You may want to pick up some of those defenders and maybe look at playing a 5 at the back and only 2 mids if you have to. So that's something to have a look at. The other note for me, the World Cup, no EPL between November the 13th and Boxing Day.
Oh, no.
So
What are we going to
yeah,
do?
a month and a half
Off
there.
the World Cup, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose we'll make do with that. Let's hope Australia gets out of the group. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. And then I was debating, is it better to have a month and a half off or be match sharp and potentially tired from the World Cup? I just wanted to get your really quick pick on that. Is it better to have the month off or is it better to play the World Cup? What do you think of your fantasy assets?
Month off.
Yeah, probably a month off, to be fair.
I think with not the travels all that far, but it's not exactly going to be pristine conditions to play football over there.
Yeah. Or have the group stages and then get knocked out in the group stages, maybe.
I think go over there, play 3 games, come back, have an extra week and 2 weeks off. That'd work. That'd be ideal, to be honest. But I think if you got like a Brazilian, an English, Portuguese, Spanish, Germany, one of the countries that's going to more than likely run deep, I'd prefer them not to be playing. If you've got like a Ronaldo, for instance, going to play 90 minutes every game, I'd prefer him not to be playing 720 odd minutes in the space of 3 weeks. I'd prefer him to be sitting on a beach instead.
Fair enough. So I've seen lots of debate on that as to whether a match sharpness maybe counters that. That's something to actually have a think about then. So 2 things I was going to talk to you guys about. A new rule change for the first time, 5 subs for the whole season. So there's been a lot of debate on the effect on that. So I actually found a really cool article and I'm going to give a shout out to Draft Society. I've really liked them for a while. I've signed up to their stuff before and I found this article here. Someone has actually gone through and said which managers will frustrate us the most when they have 5 subs. So what they did is they found all 10 managers. So those are the big 6 with Eric Ten Hag statistics from Ajax representing them. And then the rest of the Big Six and the other 4 managers who are currently at their clubs during when they had 5 subs, so like Project Restart, FA Cup, and Europe. So the other 4 outside of the Big Six were Brendan Rodgers, David Moyes, Graham Potter at Brighton, and Ralph Hasenhüttl at Southampton. So out of those 10 managers, all right, which do you think came out the most frustrating manager for fantasy assets and used 5 subs the most?
Rodgers. I got no idea.
That's actually where I was probably going to go as well.
All right, interesting. The most rotation manager, the worst for fantasy assets with 5 subs, was Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. So he comes out the worst of the statistics. So in order from the top, it goes Klopp is the worst, followed by Potter at Brighton, famous for a lot of rotation with his starting lineups as well. So frustrating one there. Arteta at Arsenal was 3rd. Then Conte at Spurs, given the system he plays, really high intensity, we'd probably go with that one. Ten Hag in the middle with 5th, obviously based on Ajax statistics. Pep was 6th, which is an interesting one for me because a lot of the narrative around Pep has been Pep roulette and rotation and everything like that. He did not come out. No team averages more minutes per starting player than City. Out of all that. So per starting player, he averages 87 minutes. So they made the fewest subs in the league by far during that 5 sub area. So that was an interesting one for me because I've personally stayed away from City assets in the past based on the Pep roulette and not liking rotation managers. So I really like that surprised me when I read that before the draft and made me more likely to take KDB. So that may affect some people's thinking as well. Tuchel was 7th. Brendan Rodgers was 8th. David Moyes was 9th. And the best manager for the least rotation was Hasenhüttl at Southampton. So I thought that was a really interesting one. The full article is on Draft Society if you really want to look at all the numbers, which I won't bore people with now at 10:55 on a Tuesday night. But yeah, I thought that was a really interesting one there for me. The only other one I found as well in my research, the effect of European competition. So for some people, they look at, is it better to have European football, particularly playing Europa League on a Thursday for some unlucky teams? Geez, I hate those people. But anyway, playing Europa League on a Thursday and playing on the weekend, is that better or worse for your EPL? What do you think they found?
I reckon it was better.
Better, yeah.
All right, so they did a study on 8 teams, both with and without European football from 2015 onward. And they found that teams without European competition, on average, finish 1.5 positions higher in the table, and their primary fantasy assets average 2.5 more starts each. So obviously this season, the teams that have swapped around are Arsenal, now have European competition where they didn't last season, and Leicester do not. So that's been the swap from last season, whereas Leicester had European, they don't this season. So maybe Maddison versus Saka, that have helped perfected my thinking. I went Maddison in the hope that just concentrating on the EPL would really help him. Whereas something like a Tielemans versus Odegaard or Martinelli, something like that. You could also consider the case of Spurs that got eliminated early from Europe. So that made Son a lot higher in a lot of people's thinkings as well. So, yeah, I mean, maybe not having Europe is going to be really good for Leicester. Maybe we can make the other argument as well. In the long run, Europe is obviously what everyone's aiming at. So, yeah, I thought those couple articles with those numbers is really good.
No, very nice. Yeah, I think, does that mean maybe Vardy is a better pick than Jesus?
Possibly. It depends if you believe that Vardy's hamstrings and knees and everything else holds up. I think was it Green he did a few times. I think it's maybe hamstrings.
Maybe,
but
yeah.
If he holds up and he starts most games, he's probably a 20-goal striker. So that could work out really well for Nate. And given his luck last season, he's probably going to get the golden boot.
Yeah, look, Vardy always comes to the party. We know that. Hey, it's going to be fun. Well, thank you, Gilby. That's some really good information, which probably would have been handy before the draft, to be fair. So, that's okay. We won't slate you too much for that.
Before we go on to
more
the
my
last
fault
one,
than yours.
Can I add something to Gilby's numbers here?
Yeah.
So while all this has been going on, I've gone through our draft. I've gone through the price values that the game has given them and added up who has the most valuable team.
Oh, cool.
Any prediction as to who has the most valuable team and who has the least valuable team?
I'm going to say Liverpool most valuable.
No, I mean in terms of our managers.
Us as managers.
So
managers.
out of the 15 players we all picked up, who has the largest budget? Now, anyone off the top of the head know what's the budget in the official game?
Is it 100 mil?
I think it is, yes. That does sound right. It's either 100 or 80. I think it's a round number. I can't remember what it was, but 100 does sound right.
In our league, the most valuable managers team is worth 100 million exactly.
Wow. You could tell me who, because I'm going to actually make that my FPL team then.
I'll guess Isaac as the most valuable, and as the least valuable, I'm going to guess Ben.
So coming in first is Gilby.
Hey.
Now, the big thing to remember here is you got a first 5 pick, and you got Ronaldo at pick 5. Yes, so you've got two 10 million plus players. Second, Jeff at 99.5. Isaac third at 99. Craney fourth at 95. Dave fifth at 93.5. Equal with Ben at 93.5. Seventh, then it was Dan at 92. Eighth is Nathan at 90.5. And my team doesn't crack 90 at 89.5.
I take my A- back then, Mick. Sorry. My apologies. Well, I got it wrong.
So Jeff has a 13 mil, Gilby has a 12 and a 10.5, Craney a 12, Dave 11.5, Isaac 11.5. Dan doesn't have anyone above 8.5 million is his most expensive, which he got in round 8, which I don't even remember who that was. My most expensive, most expensive was 8 million. There you go. So, and then Nathan's got a 9.5 and Ben's got 110 million. So a bit of an interesting one there in terms of value.
There you go. Well, Gilby, I'm going to start with your team for the season, my FPL, and just I'm not even going to touch it. I'm going to let it run the whole season. If I don't get first in that competition, I'm going to be extremely disappointed, Gilby.
Well, I mean, if you want to go with that, then go for it. I don't like your chances, but go for it.
I'm trusting you here, Gilby. I'm trusting you. Pure and simple.
I mean, I do like to trust the numbers. As a fellow maths teacher, I think you probably agree with the numbers generally, but you've been a lot better at me than going with some in-season transfers and not getting attached to your team as much. So that's something I'm hoping to learn from you this season.
Well, let's talk about this season. Let's talk about the end of the season. Let's quickly go through a top 4 and a bottom 3 for the EPL teams in general. So want to give some fearless predictions, top 4. So maybe we'll do top 4 first. Let's see if we've got some continuity in the top 4 for the EPL. Mick, did you want to kick us off there? Who's your top 4 this term?
Keep it short and sweet. A little bit different. I reckon I got a feeling I won't be alone here, but coming in 4th, I've got Arsenal, back to Champions League positions. Coming in 3rd, I've got Liverpool. Coming in 2nd, I've got Tottenham. First, Man City. So I think Conte, second year, getting the players he wants from Inter Milan. I don't think it'll take Perisic long to fit into his team. I think the defenders they've got are highly rated, though they're not proven in the Prem. Romero, Longley. I rate Sanchez, but obviously may not get much of a game there. I think with Lloris behind them, if he can have a good season, which he generally does around World Cup years, I think they'll go pretty well. Harry Kane's son, Kulusevski, was great towards the back end of last year. If I use that form, they're going to go well. Arsenal's a tough one, but I can't see them being worse with Jesus there. The only thing, like Gilby said, is European commitments, but I think you could argue they're getting to the point where they've got the depth now. You've got a guy like Emil Smith-Rowe who can't crack the starting team. He's going to get guaranteed minutes in the number 10 role or off the left wing in Europa League, is it they're playing in? And Nketiah will get the starting time up front instead of Jesus. They've got options there now. So I think Arsenal do quite well. Obviously, leaving Chelsea, that's a tough one. But, yeah, I mean, it's a fearless prediction. It's not a boring prediction.
Yeah. I'm going to go, I'll give mine now, and then we'll wrap up with Gilby. I'm going to go with, again, Arsenal, 4th. 3rd, Tottenham, 4th, Liverpool, and 1st, City. I don't see Liverpool having as good a season, but I don't see them getting toppled by Arsenal or Tottenham at this point in time. I think they still have enough depth there. Um, so that's sort of where I'm going. I agree exactly with what Mick said. I think Arsenal have got some good depth now, and I think they'll beat out Chelsea personally. And we'll just have to wait and see if that pans out. Gilby, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I cannot bear to not pick Manchester United for the
Um,
Champions League. Um, so I've gone Man United fourth, but I
Is there an
really
asterisk next to it?
yeah, there actually is. I do have asterisk, literally have an asterisk on the screen right now, acknowledging the fact it's definitely more heart than head, that pick. If I had to, if I was being honest, I probably would say Spurs fourth for me. I would be happy with Manchester United if we at least improved our performances and had a positive goal difference and actually played as a team. That's how
Oh,
low
yeah.
my standards are at the moment.
Cool.
So if heart says Man United, head says Spurs, I'm saying Arsenal third, I'm saying Liverpool second, and I'm saying City are winners.
Very good. Well, we'll have to wait and see how it pans out. But I think I got to say, I think those particular teams are well represented in our draft as well. So I think that a lot of people probably have those same thoughts.
We've all left Chelsea out. Now,
Yeah.
is in the next month, by the end of August, how much can we expect that potentially to change?
A lot, because it depends on their signings, because their centre back looks really thin for me at the moment, and up front looks really thin for me at the moment. So that could really change a lot.
Because I love the Sterling signing. I think that's a really good one. He's going to get more minutes, be a better fantasy asset, but just in general, good player. But yeah, they're thin. They're thin. I hope they play Gallagher. I think he'd be a big addition. They might have to change their system slightly, but I hope that they play him because he's really, really good. But we'll have to wait to see who they bring in. So there are our predictions, boys. Boys, we've been through everything. We've been through all the different managers and their teams. So
We had bottom
looking
three in
forward
our
to
list
it.
to maybe
Oh,
talk about
bottom three.
relegated
Yeah.
teams.
Sorry, my apologies. Bottom three. How could I forget? We'll go in the same order. So Mick, bottom three.
Now, the safe way to do it is to pick at least two of the promoted teams. So I've done that. I've gone Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, which is probably different to what a lot of the other people are saying. I think a lot of people are saying Nottingham's going to stay up. I've kind of gone the complete opposite reasonings here. So Bournemouth, I think I read today, only have 8 senior players or something available. So they're a really thin squad. And I think Scott Parker's the manager, and he's basically said we'll be doing lucky to still be alive as a club, basically, let alone still be competing. So they don't give themselves much of a shot. And then Nottingham Forest, interesting one. They could do a bit of a Brentford, but they also, to me, strike me like they did, I think it was Fulham or Norwich 2 or 3 years ago, where they've bought absolutely everybody, not necessarily quality. They've just bought a lot of people, and they're trying to basically play a brand new team. At least from what I've seen, I haven't looked into it that strictly, but it seems like they've brought in almost too many people, and I don't know how well they're going to gel together. So I've got Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest now. Then I went through it. I said, okay, well, let's keep Fulham in the league. And I said, well, what current team in there can I drop out? And I was like, well, West Ham and Leicester are too good. And Everton, surely they won't. And to be fair, they probably could. But Palace and Brighton are solid mid-table teams, if not top half teams, the way they played last year. So one of our managers won't be overly happy, but I've got Southampton in 18th there. I like Hausenhudel. I like Ward-Prowse. I just don't like their chances.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be tough. Mine, I'm going to be even bolder than what you are, Mick. I'm going Bournemouth, definite. Their last spot for me. I'm then going Southampton. I think that they will just struggle. I don't think they've picked up enough quality in enough areas, and I think they will definitely struggle. And I'm going Everton. I I I don't know how they're going to go. They're picking up players from Burnley. That's not a good sign, is it? Surely. And their coach keeps just throwing the team under the bus at every opportunity. I'm not sure how they're going to get better when they've lost their best player and haven't really got in a player of that caliber back. So I don't know. I think it'd be really interesting to see Everton go down. So that's why they're in my bottom three.
And to finish off, I'm sticking with Bournemouth. I just don't see they have enough quality to stay up. I am saying Fulham as going down. I don't think that Mitrovic can score enough. I think he's more likely to get red cards than score. But that's my personal opinion. And I think the last spot comes down to, I was deciding between Everton, Southampton, and Leeds to me, because Leeds' defence does not impress me at all, unfortunately, as much as I love the football they play. So they could very much be in there, unfortunately. I really do hope Leeds survive. But if I had to, I'm going to pick Everton. As much as it might be painful for a lot of people, they've spent money like the worst of drunken sailors in the last couple of seasons. So I don't really see them bringing in smart recruits. I actually think it's probably I think they did a really good piece of business to sell Richarlison for the money they got for him, but I just don't see enough quality coming in to actually improve their results. And they did really well to avoid the drop last season. I'm not sure I see it happening again if they don't change things pretty quick.
I don't think a preseason with Lampard at the helm is actually going to make too many big improvements, to be fair. Like, I'm sure he's a great coach, but just with the incomings they've got at the moment, when you're picking up Burnley players as your recruits, I don't see how that's actually a successful formula, but we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. So, boys, some bold predictions there. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for jumping on with me in this podcast/live stream. Thank you very much, boys. And look, we've got our first round coming up this weekend. Everyone will put their teams in, and we'll get to dissect what that looks like and see who the front runners may be, who needs to maybe make some changes to their squads. And we'll have a look at that next week. So, boys, thank you very much. Best of luck. And we'll catch up next week.
Catch you later.
Perfect.